How can you prepare for those high-stakes presentations without last-minute chaos? And I want to address something that happens here, and that is, for example, conference talks or pitches. And you sort of know when the deadline is, and in many situations you know it well in advance, and yet everything is sort of last minute every time. And I want to talk about why this happens and how we can actually prevent it. So typically, this is the situation. You know that, for example, in 2 months or 3 months, you have this super important high stakes presentation, this super important pitch or promotion presentation or whatever it is that you are currently working on. And you are sort of thinking, okay, but I have time. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to work on my data, work on my stuff. And then at some point, I will just sit down maybe 2 weeks before and figure it out and structure it step by step. But what happens the vast majority of time is that work tends to bulk up exactly those weeks or those days where you planned beforehand that you are going to have more free time to prepare your talk and structure everything with calm and peace of mind as you were supposed to. However, as I said, usually work bulks up exactly in those cases, and we very commonly end up staring at the blank slide at 2 a.m. the night before our big presentation and big talk. And the reason why this happens, people mistakenly think that the real problem is the slides and building the project and how am I actually going to explain that and so on. But the actual problem comes beforehand. So the problem is, how do you structure everything? Like, how do you take this bunch of mess and structure it in a way that actually makes sense to everyone? That's the most time-consuming part. That's the part that I feel people, or at least my clients, are struggling most with, because it's not about building the slides. It's actually deciding and knowing what to put there, especially if you have this super high-stakes presentation, this super tense situation that you know that you have this one chance to really make an impression, to really show the impact of your work and so on. So my suggestion here is to actually start from there. So start from the impact. Normally we have this bunch of work with this bunch of messy data, then we sort of have to structure and then suddenly put it onto the slides. And those two things, when they are happening at the same time, we sort of tend to enter in this panic loop. Like, oh, I don't have anything done yet. Oh, but how am I supposed to say that? Or am I supposed to even say this or mention this? Or what are the important parts? What is not so important? This is so messy and so on. So we tend to be sort of stuck in this loop. The solution, however, to do so, what actually is the solution, is to separate those two things. So structure first and build the slides later. And when I say structure, I don't mean that you have to take 3 days or 4 days of work to structure all of the things that you've done. What you really need is just 30 minutes of focused work asking yourself the right questions. For example, who is the audience that I'm talking to? What is their expertise? What are they interested in? What is their number one problem that they want to get solved? Just simply by stopping for a moment and reflecting on those questions, you are instantly going to really put some order in that messy data and messy work that you have. So just by stopping for a moment and explaining that and really reflecting on those questions and giving yourself a solution, an answer, and so on, will already provide you with the structure. And the structure is actually what is going to guide you the slide building process, the report building process, and it's actually going to make it much, much easier, because you're not going to have to make the decisions at the same time. You will not have to make the structural decisions and the slide decisions at the same time. We are going to separate that, so everything happens in its due time. And when it's time to actually sit down and write that report, sit down and write the thesis, sit down and build those slides, you actually already know exactly what should go where and how to put it all together. Doing this is exactly what I help STEM professionals do, because many times we are doing this brilliant work, and yet when it's time to showcase it, when it's time to see how it shines, we sort of really get a step back. And I feel this is not fair, because I believe STEM professionals are doing a great job and they need this skill set. They need this skill set of sort of not being stressed when they're talking about their work that they are so passionate about. So if you're interested in training that muscle, in really understanding how can you put instant order, instant structure into this massive pile and bunch of work that you have, I will leave a link down below where you can schedule a completely free intro coaching session where we can talk exactly about that. Like, what are your habits? What typically happens when you have to present your work? How do you structure it? Where do you start from? And how we can improve that workflow so that it's easier, less stressful, and much, much more enjoyable. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, see you next time in another video. Bye bye.